everybody. Welcome to Cannabis Live. I'm Craig Aronoff along with Barton Morris from the Cannabis Legal Group. We're working on some minor technical thing there. Welcome. We're here to talk about all things to do with the Medical Marijuana Facility Licensing Act here in Michigan. Our firm specializes in that, and we're hoping to hear from people who are interested in asking questions. Give us a like, share us. We'd love to make a way around your Facebook. And Barton's. So today we're going to be talking about the seed-to-sale tracking system, and there's been a few minor developments, or some might think are more major, but here in the state of Michigan. So why don't we just take a minute and talk about some updated things that are going on, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to discuss today.
All right. So today is September 16th.
15th.
15th.
It's my anniversary.
Oh, yeah. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. September 12th, there was a meeting by the Medical Marijuana Board. Is that what they're called? Regulatory Board?
Yeah, Licensing Board.
Licensing Board. And every time one of those things comes up, it's huge news because everybody's interested in it. There's always a packed house. They stream it online. Everybody's paying attention. And it's usually a lot to talk about. This time, there was plenty to talk about. There was the release of the names that individuals that have been assigned to the working groups that are going to be assisting with and providing support for drafting the regulations. What else? Some regulatory fees were announced. And then there's always, of course, the really popular issue about closing existing dispensaries.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that topic once again hijacked the majority of the meeting, and so less than being substantive on the other issues that we're hoping to see to move this boulder forward so we can get moving towards licensing. Just briefly, they decided to say by December 15th that the current operating dispensaries and caregiver centers need to close. And there was a lot of feedback from the community discussing how this transition period would work, where there might be a gap in available medicine for a variety of reasons related to the caregiver-patient model not being really properly supportive of the oils and other extracts and medicines that are commonly found at those dispensaries. So we're going to see more conversation between now and December as to those transitioning things, but that appears to be the time frame. The AG's opinion is that medicine in the market after that date needs to be through the licensed system.
That makes sense to me. I mean, I'm not super surprised that there's going to be a transition period. There has to be a transition period. It's not as though that an existing dispensary is going to simply just one day all of a sudden become regulated. There's going to have to be a period that they close and then open again. And get licensed. In addition to the fact that there's still issue about whether those that are in operation right now do have the requisite moral character in order to be able to get a license in the future anyway. So, the issue is really bigger than I think people even realize. And also, a lot of people say, well, what about the patients? Where are they going to get their medicine? And I agree, and I understand that a lot of patients are relying upon these dispensaries to get their medicines, but you also have to remember that the Medical Marijuana Act does have a place for patients to get their medicines, and they're called caregivers. Caregivers are individual, and they're not going away. Caregivers are registered under the Act and are able to grow marijuana and process marijuana for their patients. And so patients aren't going to be completely unavailable to get their medicine. They're going to be able to get it from their caregivers, and these dispensaries can still operate as a caregiver. I mean, they and that's what they're supposed to be. They're just not supposed to be delivering medication to everybody that walks in the door or every patient that walks in the door. They're allowed to, and they're authorized to, and they will be continued to be authorized to provide medicine to that caregiver, from that caregiver to their registered patient. That's still going to be able to happen. It can still happen at these dispensaries. These dispensaries can employ multiple caregivers to provide and provide medicine to multiple patients. And so it's perhaps not as dire, I think, as it sounds for patients. It's more dire for the dispensaries and how they're going to continue to operate and continue to move past and transition if they're going to be able to.
Yeah, so I think we're going to need to dial it back in terms of how the delivery of medicine is back into this base model. And I think that, through conversation, discussion, and the ability to be creative and discuss your way through it, there are going to be some ways to be legally transferring that medicine using the facility itself, the business itself as the mechanism. So rather than meeting at a schoolyard, there's a place to go where you can safely do it. Separately, of course, is the idea that was discussed as far as what it means if you don't close or if you're still deemed to be in violation of the old law, at least in the eyes of a board member, because that was all it was. It was his opinion. And it was pretty clear at the onset of that meeting, as he said, and I just want to be clear that, to paraphrase it, of course, that, I'm not saying that you can't apply. I'm saying that you're not getting my vote if you continue to operate. So in other words, he's given this grace period to say, wind your things down, and then when you do apply, I'm going to, hopefully give your package an honest review. All of us have our cynicism of that fact, but let's see what happens over time. But most importantly, of course, is the idea that the board simply has the discretion to approve or not approve a license. They can't dictate when and how a business can be open. That's a different issue, and I think each community can address those with their law enforcement. So now getting into the next big piece of information, of course, is our seminar. We have it coming up next week. Bart, why don't you tell us about it?
On September 22nd, we will be presenting our 7th seminar on how to get licensed in the medical marijuana marketplace, regulated marketplace in Michigan. Our seminars have been very successful. We have provided instruction, very, very detailed, practical instruction on how to get licensed and the things that people need to know to hundreds of people. I mean, every single one of our seminars has received about 100 people or more each time, and this is going to be, I think, the best one yet. I don't want to make it cursory and make it simple like other ones have been. This one, a lot of people are really familiar now with what is going to be expected, and so this one we're going to provide really practical information about the actual applications, the municipal applications and the state application, what to do to get prepared for it, and answer all of the questions that people have. We're going to have great speakers. Of course, ourselves are going to be speaking. We're going to have others, experts in the field speaking as well. It is going to be you're not going to want to miss it. It's definitely going to be a great seminar. And it's a week from today, so now that I think about it, maybe our Facebook Live show we'll do maybe immediately before the seminar, or perhaps even put something out during the seminar.
Yeah, I think that would be a great way to show people what it really looks like when we're in the trenches and talking about it and educating. Because a large part, as you see, that Barton and I do, especially with these type of Facebook Lives, but generally in the everyday things that we do within the cannabis industry is educate. And whether it's municipalities, whether it's clients, whether it's other colleagues that we're working with to learn from as or share information, it's a communal aspect of it. And these type of seminars really allow us to bring home and really help people get their footing in this industry. It's available to anybody who has the ambition to do it and the spirit to do it and the, of course, wantingness to do it. And so one of the things that's going to be very important for anyone who does get into the industry, of course, is this new seed-to-sale tracking system. And so this is a regulatory compliant thing that our statute provides. There's actually an act called the Marijuana Tracking Act, which is part of the statutes in the state of Michigan. So this is our law. This isn't about what rules will be made. This is how we actually do business here in Michigan. And so this law provides that within the Medical Marijuana Facility Licensing Act, that there is a system set up for inventory and compliance, but most importantly, for diversion prevention. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the framework that we're looking at, Bart?
That is a good point. This is not a regulatory scheme. This is a legislative act that was passed, and that demonstrates how important that the industry is going to, or the state is going to implement this. And I think that is probably the number one issue that it seeks to address is the prevention of diversion. Diversion means that the cannabis that is intended to be grown, processed, and sold only through the licensed regulated market in Michigan, none of that cannabis is going to be then diverted to the black market or to any other market, like a caregiver market. Meaning that from the moment that that plant begins its inception, like for instance, as a clone at a licensed cultivation facility, it's going to be tracked, and it's going to be identified, and it's going to be tracked as if, like, when it grows through its cycles. For instance, let's say it dies, it has to die. Well, that's going to be tracked as well. The state is going to know and is going to ensure that any plant that doesn't make it to maturity and then harvest is going to be tracked and destroyed. And then, but if it does make it to harvest, then it is going to it's going to be tracked as well. And so not only is it going to provide tracking through the cultivation cycle, but then through the cycle in which that it then delivered to a testing facility, and then the testing facility is going to be online in order to provide the testing numbers that are then going to be up into that software as well. And then after it passes this chemical and microbiological testing, then it's off to either the processor or the dispensary, and then it's going to be tracked until the end user, which is the patient.
So first and foremost, I think there's a note on here saying that you can't hear us. So if that's the case, please let us know. We do have microphones in front of us, so we want to be sure that they're picking up our sound correctly. We'll also do our best to talk up a little bit louder. So, but you know, there's, as we talk about the diversion, why it ended up in our legislation and not actually through our rulemaking body. The inception of this really comes out of Colorado, and you know, where we saw that kind of come into their marketplace a couple of years after their commercial medical marijuana market started. And this goes to the hindsight of their state. You know, when they were going through that transition, if asked today, what would you do differently? They would say seed to sale tracking was very key on helping to eliminate diversion and eliminate the growth of the black market before it went to the recreational market. And so in Michigan, we have the benefit of the hindsight to say we're going to initiate this from the onset. And in essence, you know, just imagine there's a little chip on the plant, like a little RFID chip. We've seen these in barcodes at grocery stores. We've seen them in checkout lines of, you know, clothing stores. And currently in agriculture, there are many situations where it's already in use. So whether they're carrots, whether they're tomatoes, whether it's lettuce batches, whether it's, you know, meat through meat packing, you know, we know where each cow is. And so the idea that, you know, the agricultural product of marijuana and cannabis in this instance is actually being tracked through the marketplace is not new to the industry. It's simply part of what we see in most commercial enterprises. And so now this system through Metric, which is the company that the state of Michigan contracted with and is used by the state of Colorado and recently adopted by the state of Washington in favor of a different brand. And so it's gaining some bandwidth in terms of other states, so we can show some common compliance issues. But the way that the state enacted it is now we're going to have every piece of, you know, our agricultural product through the entire phase from the seed to the sale to the end user will be able to be followed through our system electronically and manually in terms of being able to visually see it. And so there's a path from beginning to end, starting with the seedling through the flower phase, and then batched at, you know, the time of harvest. So it goes into a new seed or a new number based on a batch, and that's sold to a processor or in a batch to a dispensary. Of course, it's tested along the way, so the batch is actually tested as well. And then once it goes into the manufacturing process, it gets assigned a new number by the processor license, and then it goes through their system, similarly getting tested, and then comes out through a batch that is associated to that batch number. Bottom line is, like we know when we walk into 7-Eleven and buy a thing of milk, if there's something bad about it or a recolor or something, we know the cow it came from, and we know everyone who touched it along the way. That's true in dairy, that's true in vegetables. It will be true even more so in marijuana.
I think it's great that we have selected a system that's already in the process of working in another state. So the metric system is run by a company called Franwell, is in operation in Colorado. I think, first of all, that demonstrates and goes to show how much the state of Michigan is mimicking what's going on in Colorado. And so a lot of times when I'm looking for what I believe or what I think is going to be happening in Michigan, I know for a fact that the department, the Medical Marijuana Bureau, is going to be and is looking at Colorado and seeing how they're doing things. Hopefully, they're learning from their successes and their mistakes.
Yep.
But going to Metric's website is a great suggestion. I have learned a ton going through their website because there's a lot of information. There's also a lot of videos that they have on YouTube as far as training videos. Another thing that you can go to on their website, which I'd like to even present, put on the board now, is, I wonder if that's coming up, is their Metric's registered integrator list. And so they have,
It's not up.
So first of all, you have to understand that the Metric system, the Metric software, is only for use by the state. It is not going to be that is not going to be the software that's used by the individual licensees. And so, a grower or a processor or a testing facility or a provisioning center is going to have to obtain their own software that is licensed to integrate with Metric. And if you go to their website, you can find ones that are currently authorized for the state of Colorado. You can't get ones that are currently authorized for the state of Michigan, but it is highly likely that many of the companies that are, or the software that is authorized and licensed for Colorado will be coming from Michigan, especially the larger ones. I think the larger ones include MJ Freeway, for instance. MJ Freeway has a third-party software that is designed for use by the licensee. And that is something that licensees should be doing now, is investigating, if they haven't done so already, which software they're going to be using. And it's not just MJ Freeway. There's a whole list on their website. So I think MJ Freeway, BioTrack, and FlowHub, I think, are the three largest companies or software packages that licensees can use. But there's many more than that.
And so what we need to do is recognize that the Franwell system is a back end. Really, what it's designed to do is allow for three different ways for communication in the marketplace. And what we're talking about is first of all, in the industry and regulatory capacity, like how does it interact on the website? And, we know that there's, CRMs or relationship management systems on the back end, and the API, which is the application, that brings it together with the actual back end of Franwell. What that does is it integrates it. It programs the front end. So when you're dealing on your computer and looking at your computer, what are you looking at? And that's the system we're talking about, these APIs. And one of the things that is important is there's innovation here. We have people with very good technological skills here in Michigan that will be developing their own APIs.
Right.
This is one of the pixes and axes of the industry. MJ Freeway blew up as a way to interact with Franwell. And so we're going to have industrious people here in Michigan that will create their own. And it's very clear that the Franwell system says the API can be done manually. You can literally upload it right into the system. You don't technically need a software. They're offering an open front end to allow people to develop their own. And so that's how the system works. So licensees will have the opportunity to buy one and work with one and license one through, just like we do with other software, be it Microsoft Word or any of the other programs we're always commonly using. Or they'll be able to have the opportunity to maybe use some skills they have within their team and develop their own programming to speak to it. And as long as it's accurate, auditable, and otherwise, qualified to be on that system, and Franwell will confirm that, then innovators can maybe find a new industry to be on the system with everybody else. And I think that's an exciting proposition. As we've talked about our marketplace, we've commonly talked about the ancillaries that will be available to participate in, be it lighting, be it other type of processing equipment, and in this case, software. And so again, that open opportunity was available because the statute gives us this opportunity. And that's very important. The state of Michigan is looking for people here to develop their own products.
And as they should. If you look at the list that's provided on the Colorado list, there's a bunch of Colorado-specific companies that have created software for Colorado businesses.
Mm-hmm.
One of those companies is a company that we are planning on working with, and I'm traveling out there to meet with. Is its compliance software. This particular one is called Simplifia, and Simplifia is a software that's developed by this company in Colorado. I met the developers when I was out in Oakland, California, and it's software that is tied into Metric, meaning that it is an approved integrated software through Metric, and this software allows for licensees to provide compliance audits to their own companies to ensure that their businesses are operating in the manner that the state would expect in their compliant manner. And so by ensuring this beforehand, by taking that prevention step to ensure that your company is being compliant, you're avoiding hopefully costly things that would happen later as far as non-compliance and the state coming in and providing fines and disciplinary action in order to demonstrate that you haven't been compliant. And so it's not just the seed to sale tracking software that you can purchase that will integrate with Metric, but there's other uses as well. And so it's not compliance, and I would imagine there's other things as well. If somebody's creative and they want to be able to utilize Metric as a platform in order to create their product, they can do that as well.
Yeah, and certainly this is where also cash flow can be seen. So from the state side, we know they're going to be tracking plant counts. They're also going to be tracking money this way. So on a front end, you're actually be able to help track your money. So imagine it kind of like for lack of a better description, like a QuickBooks style, where that's also a part of this management. So you're tying the actual sale from a dispensary level, or maybe a grower in a gross product level, and wholesaling it. It's now you can track the flower and the money together, again putting yourself in a better auditable position. When we talk about regulatory compliance, really what we're talking about the entire time is being in a position to say, come on in, look at what I'm doing, I fear nothing with you. I'm going to be proved to be doing this the right way, and these are the systems that help support that. It's going to be very difficult to manually do it by yourself. You got to use your bandwidth and use these product lines to do that. And so what ends up happening, and what we've seen from the studies on this coming out of the states using it, is that the issues really come down to licensing and training. Are the people that are using the product properly licensed and doing things regulatorily compliant, of course staying within the lanes of the rules? And then separately, are they training their staff? Because just because the owners know it, just because the managers know it, doesn't mean the person who's tired after an 8-hour shift did it correctly. And so you need to make sure that the training, and you'll see if you visit the Metric website, and you can go to metrc.com/Michigan, and there's all sorts of Q&A there. Michigan put it up through Laura for that purpose, so we can start to see what we're talking about. And so in there are training videos. And if you're going to be in the industry, you have to go and review those. You have to set up your facilities to have that training for all of your employees, whether they come on new today or tomorrow or next month. You got to give them the same level of training. And one of the things that we're going to be doing here at the Cannabis Legal Group is trying to assist in putting those pieces together. We've already told you about in the past how we have on our website, cannabislegalgroup.com/jobs, where you can go on there and provide your resumes. And then we're going to work with those employees to help put them into training programs so that employers and us can put them in a position where they can be as successful as possible. And so that's just a reminder of how our website can be a resource to those of you that are wanting to get in the industry, whether you can be an owner or not. And of course, there's a few other pages on there we'd love to have you visit.
Yeah. We can mention as well our page that lists the municipalities that we believe or that we've provided information about, whether they've adopted ordinances for the facilities license or whether they haven't. We're doing our best to try to keep that up to date. We get a lot of feedback from a lot of industry individuals providing information so that we can keep that up to date, and we ask that anybody that has information with respect to whether a municipality is thinking about adopting an ordinance or has decided not to or decided to do it, and we want to keep that up to date for everybody. It's definitely, we have demonstrated that it's a significant resource that people love, and we're going to continue to provide it.
Yeah, it's I think very helpful in a one-stop shop, at least as far as seeing what we've already touched. Now, one comment about our municipalities, if I may, is the activity level in mid-September is exponentially different than it's been yet this year. So all along, especially the summer months, we saw these, planning commissions and city and councils and town boards kind of pull back the reins, enjoy their summer, not do a lot of business in their townships, maybe do the mundane stuff. But come September, we've seen a significant increase of MMFLA agenda items coming across the state. And so it's important, if you see your community starting to take action, please let us know. Let us get it out there if it can be helpful to assist in getting that agenda moved from let's talk about it to let's work on an ordinance to, hey, we have an ordinance and now we can actually invest in land and pursue licenses. Because right now there's a lot of communities and a lot of places where people want to do business but aren't yet available and able to do that. Because as a reminder, the first two questions on this application are very likely to be, does the city you operate in have an ordinance and is your property compliant? The answer is no. There's no reason to ask you your name or what you're trying to do. And so it's important that when we work on that, and so that's why we're discussing at the end here is if you're seeing that activity and you need assistance and want us to help you through it, you got to give us time to get it on our schedules with you. And equally important, get the word out so we can get the right advocates there to support this as well. So, we got a lot going on. Look for October to be a very busy month as well. Next week we'll be at our seminar, and as Barton said, we'll do our best to give you some snapshots of that throughout the day. And we'll look forward to discussing more topics here on Medical Marijuana Facility Licensing Act and getting licensed here in the state very soon. So for Craig Aronoff and Barton Morris, we'll see you next week. Thank you.